So much nonsense has been written about Robert Greene's Groatsworth of wit. It is Shakespeare's birth announcement in the theatrical world, but it has been so terribly misrepresented by so many commentators that today I just have to absolutely get down and tell you exactly what's going on in this book. Hello and welcome to my program. My name is Fred Faulkes. I'm a retired librarian who's had a 25-year interest, a deep interest in Shakespeare's biography. And I've uncovered a few things on my own that have put me at odds with my teachers. And so these are things that I like to share with you. It is this year, 2023, the 400th anniversary, and as we're approaching now Christmas of this year, we are really approaching the true anniversary of the first publication of Shakespeare's first folio. This first appeared in 1623 and appeared on the market in time for Christmas, as I understand it. So anyway, happy birthday, first folio. But the subject I want to talk to you about today is a little book called Greene's Groatsworth of Wit, which is in fact Shakespeare's birth announcement on the stage. It was written in August of 1592, and the intentions of what's written is often so misrepresented, so terribly misunderstood, and there are various reasons for all this misunderstanding. It's that one, commentators don't understand Robert Greene's life, and they don't understand what's going on in this book really overall, and then they don't understand Greene's language. Sometimes he is the only one-time user of certain phrases, and these have flummoxed commentators over the years. And so a lot of problems appear that I think ought to be cleared up, and so my comments today are going to be addressed towards doing that. One thing you have to understand about Robert Greene is that he'd been in the writing game for, well, over 10 years. He was a noted copycat writer. He could imitate anyone else's style that he cared to. And so early on, he copied John Lilly's Euphuist style. And then when Thomas Kyd and Christopher Marlowe became famous for their drumming blank verse with plays like The Spanish Tragedy and Tamburlaine, such plays, Greene thought, oh, I can do that too, and he tried writing one of those blank verse plays with that drumming poetry, ba-boom, 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 and didn't succeed. And then he was drawn into imitating Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadian style, so we had Greene's Arcadia for a while. And then he did a whole bunch of prodigal son stories because he wasn't feeling very good about himself. And then he actually got the hang of playwriting and wrote a number of very successful plays. But as he comes into 1591, he gets drawn to writing for James Burbage at the Theatre Playhouse. And that's one of the things that we find in this little book. Now, looking at at Greene's Groatsworth of Wit, it's a small book, as you can see, and it's made up of sort of some strange parts. The first part is a half-finished novel, um, and I think what this tells us about Greene was that he was in August of 1592 in some medical difficulty, and he was in need of money, and he was selling half-finished books just to get some quick advances. This first little novel, if you will, this little romantic story. It's a trite little tale, and it really goes nowhere except that the main character turns from being a usurer's son into a playwright. And the way that part of his life is described, his jumping out of his little novelette into some possibly real life biography, indicates an old actor who has a playhouse at the town's end, sort of exactly like James Burbage. And he tells us here that this actor had thundered the role of Hercules, the seven labors of Hercules, and was famous therefore. And we know that James Burbage, as lead actor of Leicester's Men, had gone with the Earl of Leicester to the lowlands to fight the Spanish, and there the play they had presented was the Seven Labors of Hercules, and so that all fits. And what also fits is that the old actor takes him to the town's end to write plays, and installs him in well, here it's described as a house of retail, but we may be sure it was a brothel. And and Robert Greene became involved with a woman there, had a child by her, and that also appears in this little story. But then we come to the letter that Robert Greene writes to the other playwrights. And what's not understood here is that he is sick. And so whenever he says, that state as I am now, he means if you got sick the way I am sick now, here is what will befall you according to my experience. And what has been his experience? Well, he's had a meeting with Pembroke's men. Now, you might say 1592, that's a plague year. All the playhouses were closed. And you'd be right. Pembroke's men, it appears, were in town. And we have an actor's will, Simon Jewell's will, that we've talked about before, that indicates they were in London in August of 1592. And they, again, it appears were rehearsing at the closed playhouse, preparing for a very special performance. And so Robert Greene caught them at the playhouse rehearsing. And what he makes clear is that his anger towards the actors, which has been often so misrepresented, is all because he asked for some money and they said no. We have no money to give you. And that, might seem like a very terrible thing. After all, you're dying, you reach out to people you've worked with for some assistance to, help you along a little bit. But, well, it might be that he caught them at a bad time. They might not have had a whole lot of money. It was a plague year, and working under plague conditions was difficult for actors because many towns would not have them, force them to just go around, please, don't bother us. Because, when you gather people together during a pox, that pox will spread. So, anywho, they may not have had a lot of money. And then as well, given his reputation, Greene may not always have been a fair operator, might have drawn more money than he was willing to put labor in. He may have been in a deficit position with them. I don't know. But anyway, for whatever reason, they refuse him. And it is only on the heels of this, that is, after he has described his absolute anger, his raging anger at being denied any money, that he comes to this part that where he says, yes, don't trust them, for there is among them a new actor. He calls him an upstart crow. So often when writers are referred to, they are referred to as birds, and that's because birds carry the feathers used to write with in this day and age. So what does he say about the upstart crow? And, often commentators will say, oh, Robert Greene was jealous of Shakespeare's success, and, whatever he says here is just his bad feelings about Shakespeare, blah, 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 blah. And this is absolute nonsense. I'll tell you exactly what he says about Shakespeare. He just says that Shakespeare claims to be doing the same thing you and I are doing. And Robert Greene says, how does he do it? He has a tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide. And you might say, well, what does that mean? You might think, a tiger's heart, that sounds like fire, that sounds like excitement, and then a player's hide, he's wrapped in some sort of player's garb or costume or what have you. That might be all fine and dandy as far as it goes. But then Thomas Tyrwhitt in the 18th century discovered that, hey, that's a play on a line out of one of Pembroke's plays, The True Tragedy of Richard, Duke of York, where it stands as, oh, tiger's heart wrapped in a woman's hide. And that Pembroke play was one that was written by that initial troupe of writers that we've already met with. Just by way of corroboration of that point, I have to point out that Greene here, as one of those 6 writers, he addresses his letter to Marlowe, Nash, and George Peele. And he says that there are 2 other writers who have written for this company. So in other words, 6 writers when Nash was telling us about the troupe back in September of 1591, and 6 writers still now that we're with Greene in August of 1592, 1 year later. So it's been the same setup throughout as far as I can tell. What Greene seems to be saying is William, and he doesn't call him Shakespeare or Shakespeare or anything, he calls him Shakespeare. He says, Shakespeare supposes he's as well able to fill out a line of blank verse as any of the rest of you, And how does he do it? Well, he has this tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide, which seems to be referring to a woman's hide. And so, is there a woman at back of the player? And that is the situation that we've already started to uncover somewhat, and for which we find corroboration here from Greene. I think that is the main lesson that we can learn from Robert Greene's birth announcement of William Shakespeare. It's not that the Shakespearian material that Greene heard, and he doesn't say that it's bad or anything of that sort. So this whole notion of he was jealous of Shakespeare's success, that's just total nonsense. What he's saying is, our plays have been rewritten, boys, and here's the man who says he's done it, and I don't believe it. And I think that is the upshot of Greene's Groatsworth of Wit. At least that's what I take to be its Groatsworth of Wit. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting the channel, and hope to see you soon with another edition. I think next time we're going to start looking at the fallout from this book, because there was an awful lot of fallout from Greene's Groatsworth that also deserves to be explored. So till then, thank you and bye.